First of all, welcome. Thank you for coming. As you know, today's session is all about how you can use Markus to stay on top of your compliance. A particular focus on the meeting invite and the socials that we've shared via LinkedIn and so on. It's been with a particular focus on your EICRs, EICs and PAT testing. So generally sort of around the electrical contractors. But I did think that when I was putting this together, why limit ourselves just to those three? So I will be having a bit of a focus on those, but we will show you how we can help you with your compliance in other areas that perhaps you might not be aware that we are doing, and sort of give you ideas and some food for thought as to how you could make use of our system moving forward. First things first, there's always a bit of an introduction to these things. If we're going to focus on things such as maintenance, so things like your EICRs and PAT testing, things that come around once every year, once every 5 years, then you need to be able to manage your jobs. Now, depends on your structure of how your clients work. You may well have an interface with a client. So where you've got that, as you know, your interface will work directly with the client system. And so we integrate to the system, we import the jobs. And just this morning, we've imported a batch of over 1,500 planned preventative maintenance jobs for one of our customers that have an interface. So 1,500 jobs, they didn't need to manually key those in. There was no effort involved. They literally just come over the interface. If you've got that, or you've got clients that have got systems that would be willing to talk to ours, then that's a really useful way of getting those jobs in. So particularly with things like planned works, sometimes the client will send you an entire list and expect you to just manage that and deal with them. But then they might release jobs in batches to you. We've got customers that will send maybe 500 jobs a quarter and say, these all need to be done by the end of March, that sort of thing. So if that's the case, you might well get imports from spreadsheets. So the little screenshots you can see on our slide in front of you, you've got the little dashboard widget there for received via import. That's where your jobs would land if you'd got an interface. They just land in the system automatically for you. If you use a spreadsheet importer that would look a little bit like this, then those jobs would land in at the same status on your dashboard. There'd just be a little bit of effort involved to get the data into this format. So we do have, as I say, several clients where you get your jobs sent in a spreadsheet form and you can upload them. And there is a separate YouTube video all about how that works, and it's really easy to do. Once you've done one and you've set your file up, it's quite straightforward to then sort of mirror that for future batches. Of course, you could literally just type the job in, but if you've got large numbers, then that's less workable. Most people tend to go with the spreadsheet importer, but we've also got our work plans, and there is a plan to put a separate webinar on entirely about work plans and how they all work. But work plans, they allow you to add all your properties against a particular contract against a plan. Say, for example, EICR. You could have an EICR work plan that what happens is when you come round to scheduling your work, the system knows what jobs are due when, and when you try and schedule this work in, you can bulk allocate that work out to your engineers, and you can also do appointment letters and so on based upon all those jobs in bulk. And it's quite a handy way of managing it. We've got different things we can do with those. It allows you to schedule jobs at certain intervals. So you could say, generate me a job the next time you create one. We had a customer doing this for grass cutting at one point, where they were doing some communal grass cutting, and they wanted during the summer months, at the end of the first cut, they wanted the next job to be raised for a fortnight's time, so that they could schedule it out so that the guy doing the grass cutting could go and do it in a fortnight, and that would just keep going for a few months during the summer, and then it disappeared again for the winter. So there's things we can do with that. So hold that in your head. If that's useful, get in touch. We can always go over work plans with you and go over the sort of different options there. But as I say, I do plan on doing a separate webinar on that. One of the things I wanted to show you, this is, as I say, there is a different YouTube video on all this, all to do with generic job imports. But I would like to show you how easy it is to do this task. So what I've got here, it's a import file for a load of properties. I've got some property numbers here, so I've not bothered putting the address in because I've got property numbers. And this is all for carry out an EICR on the property. So what I've done is I've keyed all this information, copy and pasted it into a spreadsheet. You can see that I've got 280 properties to carry out an EICR at. That's quite a lot to do manually. So I've put it all in my little spreadsheet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go into our little demo system here. And you might be aware of the ability to import jobs. If you're already familiar with this, then bear with me. If you've not seen this in action before, you can have a dashboard widget here, which is the spreadsheet uploader. And as you can see, we've got different options for different things. You've got a bunch of different importers you can use. We want the generic job importer. And what I want to do is I want to grab my file, this one here, and I want to import those jobs, and I could upload them into the system. That has now created 280 jobs, as you can see there, which are now at status of received via import. If I just click into one randomly for you, you can see the job description of carry out EICR. I've got a very outdated price for an EICR, but you can see I managed to upload it with an SOR code on it. And so what you could do is you could just simply issue that job out now manually. We could, some of you are very familiar with using the issue bulk here, and you can also create a batch of letters as well. So I am going to just quickly show you. One of the things we do normally is if you've just done a received via import, we could actually bulk change all of those. So we check all, and we bulk change them all to a different status, something like EICR awaiting allocation. So if I process those through, those now have all been updated. So if I hit my home screen, we can see in here that my EICR awaiting allocation, I've got 280 jobs there waiting to be done. If I went to issue bulk, I could pick the name of one of my operatives from the list here, and I can switch the status to be the one I want to look at. So this is going to be the ones that are at EICR awaiting allocation. So there we've got our 280 jobs. I could choose my operative up here, and I could make some changes to the dates and the times I want them to go, tick the ones I want to issue, and then at the very bottom of our list, I can hit issue selected, and that will send all those jobs out to the mobile app on the right day for the right guys. So that's just one way of doing it. I mentioned earlier about work plans. That's another way. I'm not going to show that today. There's going to be a separate session all about that. But how you get those jobs out to your engineers is really up to you. But as I did say, there would be nothing stopping you just simply hitting issue job and scheduling that in manually in the way that you always do. One of the things that our system is capable of doing is when you're using work plans, and I mentioned about automated letters, it might be what you want to do is these are awaiting scheduling, but what you want to do is you want to send a letter out to all the residents and say, we need to come out and do this. Please give us a ring and arrange a suitable time. We've got several people doing it that way. We've got several people actually issuing the jobs out for an appointment date and time and sending the letters out so that they can almost dictate we're coming on this day. If it's not suitable, ring up. However you decide to do that, you can use the bulk letters. So I want to send an EICR letter, which we can set up in our communications templates over here. And I would like to pick up the jobs that are currently sitting in this status. Of course, you've got a whole manner of different ways of finding these. There we are. So you can see I've got all my 280 jobs there. I could select all of them and hit make a letter, but for now I'm just going to do the one, and this will create a nice letter for our guys, and I can say your thing's due here. We've made an appointment. If we had made appointments, that'd be shown. It could just say please phone us. But again, this letter is completely customizable, can have your logo on it, the client's address. We can make that fit windowed envelopes, and you could, if you'd have done this for all 280 properties, what you'd have ended up with was one PDF file with 280 pages. That could be emailed off to a printers who could then print the letter, post it for you, and deal with all that side. So we are capable of doing all those things for you as well. And of course, that letter is now stored against the job for all time, so you can always see what was in that letter. Something else that people do is they are using SMS to help with this as well. We're sort of going down into the job control side rather than compliance at this point, but using SMS, you can then send automated text messages to your residents to say, we've booked an appointment, we're due to come on this date and time, please give us a call if that's not suitable. And then, of course, as you get closer to the job, we can send SMS out to say we're coming tomorrow, or if the engineer accepts the job and says they're on the way, we can send an SMS to say we're coming out now. And having the SMS being sent out to your residents, sort of certainly the day before, it does give them the opportunity to give you a call and rearrange if it looks like they're not going to be in, which does help you with your KPIs and cutting down on your no accesses. The second part of the demo is the electrical side of the surveys, in terms of the surveys such as the EIC, the EICR and the PAT testing. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to demo how these things look within the back office system in terms of a survey layout, and then how they look on the mobile app so you can see how we produce it, and then I'd like you to show you what you actually get out of it at the end. So for that, I'm using our little demo system that we've got prepared for electrical contractors. Under the setup menu, you are probably all very familiar with the surveys option. If I just tick show all for now, so that we can see the full list of what I've got set up in this demo system. We've got a damp and mold survey, but more crucially, we've got our EIC, we've got the EICR, and we've got a PAT testing survey. So in terms of the EICR, this one here, if I edit that, so to show you how it is structured, the way we set this up in our system is you've got the different sections that relate to the printout that you get. Here you've got your different sections that appear on the mobile app in different sections, so the engineer is not overwhelmed with content. They'll click into this section and they'll get these questions here. If the question, for example here, if they answer yes to the evidence of alterations, so was there evidence of alterations or additions, yes or no, if they say yes, they get asked a different question. So where you see this controlling task, that means those questions aren't there all the time, they only get them if they answer a certain way to a certain question. Each section has each sort of different category, and each of those correspond with the different sections on the actual output that you get from the survey. So you can see it's quite an extensive survey, as you know from an EICR, there's a lot to go at. We can have pick lists, so where you're putting things to do with where is the location, you can have a list of items where they get a list they can select from. The text box field allows them to simply type free text. Yes and no is an option for yes and no buttons. And number will prompt the numeric keypad. And there are a number of other different options you've got, so these will create buttons as well, or they'll create lists. And you can have photographs and all sorts. I mean, you don't tend to have photos on an EICR, but on surveys you might want to bring those in. So that's how that particular survey would look on the back office. The PAT testing one, I'm just going to step into that one, is a little smaller in its size. What you've got here is you've got a section all about the appliance that you're testing, and what you do is as you walk around the property doing the testing on the different appliances, you just simply add another one of these sections, or the action layout bits here, you add one of those on to the survey. So if you were doing a kettle, you would fill this in once for the kettle. If you were doing it again for the microwave, you'd do it again for that. And so you basically build up all of these here. And if they pass or fail, we can do clever things in the back office on the printout to put them in a certain place. So what I'd like to do is show you a current job on the mobile app. So these are how they look on the back office. There's a bit of effort involved to set these up. If what you found, by the way, that actually that PAT testing survey, that's just what we need, we can copy that from our demo system to your system almost instantly, so you don't have to set it up. Similarly, with something like the EIC, which is this one here, I've just stepped into the older layout, but you can see if you look at that and go, actually, yeah, that's perfect. You can see we've got this export button. We could export that and import it into your system, again, almost instantly. So you can then start issuing that out to your engineers. So if it's interesting to you, please let us know, because rather than you keying all these surveys in and having to set them up yourself, if the standard ones that we have work for you, we can put them on your system really quickly. I've got some dummy jobs, but the one I'm interested in is this one here for carrying out an EICR. So if I accept my job, I travel to site, And then I say I've arrived on site. One of the things that I will be talking about later in terms of compliance is not just the electrical testing, but we've got the ability to carry out risk assessments, and many of you've got this page on here as well, where this means that the engineers must complete the questions before they can go on site, and if they determine that something is going to be a risk, then that will abort the visit for them, and all this is stashed against the job. So yes, another area where we can help you with that. I'll come back to that. So this is the bit where your operatives get the surveys that have been allocated to them by their trade. So the current demo user that I'm using at the moment has been set up to see electrical things as well as the damp and mold survey. So we mentioned the EICR, we mentioned the EIC, we mentioned PAT testing. We can see I've been given a sort of a mandatory survey question about damp and mold. Some of your clients will be asking you to survey properties for damp and mold because they're gathering that data. Massive thing at the moment, certainly surrounding AWeb's law, where you can get, whilst you're in a property carrying out your EICR, if you spot some damp and mold, you can complete that survey. So initially though, let's just step into the EICR. So if you remember the different sections on the back office printout, this is what I've done here. We've separated them out, so you'd simply step into each of these different sections here and you'd start to complete the questions. Now, I mentioned about the evidence of alterations. If you said yes, you get the extra question. If you say no, you don't. So we just bear with me whilst I finish off a couple of these questions here. I am certainly not going to go and do a full EICR, you'll be pleased to hear. So what you'd do is you would work your way down each of these sections, answering all the questions, and so on. And if we go down a bit further, you've got some things like this where you've got the location. I mentioned pick lists. So you've got things like this where you can choose an item from a list. This one here that's a number, it launches the numeric keypad, whereas this one is a text, so it launches a text keypad. And all those questions, as you saw on our back office, you've got all these here where you can pass, fail, and so on. You get the different buttons. You can see how that works. The surveys are designed to be operated. This is currently a phone. The system I'm using, it's a standard mobile phone, and it's designed to be used on a phone. It will work on a tablet, but you don't need to use a tablet because there's nothing that warrants it within our surveys. All these things behave just fine on a normal phone-sized sort of screen. So you work your way through all these. Once you're done, you move on. And let's say I'll just show you, for example, the EIC. Again, very similar in its layout. And you just simply work your way through those if that was the survey you were doing. Now, in terms of PAT testing, I'm going to just show you this one. So if I was to step into the PAT test, if there was a reference, maybe you've got barcodes that you stick on things in certain different premises, you could put those on and you could have a barcode scanner, but you might decide just to have references and so on. So the location, let's go with the kitchen for the kettle, makes sense. Our way down these, and then we say it's passed. Now, I would then step out of there. You can see that's now been complete. What if I've got another appliance to do? Let's say I want to do the microwave. Well, we simply press the Add button at the bottom of our survey screen, choose the standard appliance and press Add. Step back into our list and we can see we've now got another one to do where you would just simply work your way through again. Finally, this isn't to do with the electrical side of it, but I am going to show you because it does relate to compliance. You've got your damp and mold survey. So again, this could be, is the resident aware of damp and mold? If they say yes, then should you be investigating the property for damp and mold? I think so as an engineer, yes. I think it looks bad. You could say yes. And then if you say yes, it says, where is it? Well, you could say it was prevalent in the bathroom. How severe is it? Very severe. We've got one of our customers that's got a document that pops up with 3 pictures of damp and mold. So it's sort of almost like a guide for the engineer going, well, if it looks like this, it's severe. If it looks like this, it's moderate. And so that you can use that as a guide. And then you just simply take a photograph of the damp and mold. So if I just take us back now, the mobile side, as I've said, it just works. You've got buttons, you've got lists, you've got text fields. It's really straightforward for the engineers to complete, and we walk you through the questions in order. So what I want to show you now is some ones that I've prepared earlier. So here we have a job that's got many surveys on it, but I'm just going to randomly pick on the EIC. So if I just expand on that and zoom in for us all so we can see it, we can obviously put your logo on the top of this. At the moment, it's our demo system. It doesn't have one, but you could have your logo there. You could put the client's logo on there if it was relevant. There's a number of things we can do with the printouts. But as you can see, what we've done is we have grabbed the information from the job. 8 Athens Street, Stockport, that was the address on the job. You're doing the date here is pulled from the job. We've got the address again, and these are the questions that we started to fill in. So this is one I did earlier. So the estimate age of the wiring system, you saw me complete that question, evidence of alterations, and so on. So we basically have got a nice PDF printout where we place the answers that the engineer has put on the survey. So all the boxes you can see that have been completed by the engineer, if they had made any observations of anything that remedial actions need to be taken, those are listed here. We work our way through questions, pass and fail. And as you can see at the bottom, we have areas for the signatures as well. So that is your EIC. If I do another quick example for you for this one, you've got your EICR. Bear with me 1 minute while I zoom in. There we are. So you can see this one is a little bit different in its structure. It's the EICR one. So scrolling down again, we've got areas for recommendations and so on, but you can see the inspection where you've got the pass and the fails and the NAs all get placed in the correct location. And we put all the questions on here as well, and room for the signature at the bottom. When it comes to sending those to the customer post-job, as you can see on our job here, we've got all these surveys already carried out on our test job. They're just here and they're attached to this job because they were completed from our system. When it goes to sending things from our system, if you go to the share menu and press on email, as you know, you can type an email address, you can add in visit information and so on. But over here, you've got all your photographs that would have been taken on visits. But below that, you've also got a table for any inspections or surveys that have been carried out. So if you wanted to send the EICR and you wanted to send a damp and mold survey, you could do that by adding the email address for the client. The subject there is already the property that you were at, and you could pop your email in here and then send that, and that will attach the PDF files that you have wanted to attach here. So a really handy way of making sure you can send everything from one place, and particularly if the client has a log-on to your system, if they've got a client portal log-on, then you can make this table visible to them so they can just simply come on and download the EICR certificate without you even having to send it to them. Bouncing back to my little presentation briefly, we've talked about EICs, we've talked about EICR, and we've talked about PAT testing. You've seen how we cater for it, but I did mention that we have got other things that we can do and that are not just the electrical side. We've got emergency lighting checks, which I appreciate is sort of on the electrical side of things. Fire extinguishers, we've got people doing fire alarm checks. One of the things that our scaffolding companies, as you're probably aware if you do any jobs involving scaffolding, not only do you have to provide a handover document for the scaffolding legally, but you also have to carry out the checks every 7 days on the scaffolding that's in place. And we've got customers using our mobile app to carry out those surveys. So we're sort of almost like the supervisor, if you like, for the scaffolding department, goes out and does all the checks. They have an app, they have the survey, they go out and carry it out, but it's then logged against that job. So if anybody ever wants to see it, they've got that evidence already on the job sheet. I didn't show it on the demo when I clocked on because I'd already clocked onto the mobile app, but we do have the ability to do start of day checks and vehicle checks. We've got the landlord's gas safety record for gas checks, where you do the annual boiler servicing and boiler checks. Those produce the really nice gas safe printout. We've got people doing air source checks and the CD 10 and 11 for the oil fired boilers. We've got hot water. You saw the damp and mold, and we did the risk assessment that you saw as well. So we've got a whole, that's not everything, that was just some, I struggled to fit them all on the slide, and I appreciate that's a lot of words, but I just thought it was quite useful for you to see that if you do those sorts of jobs, we already have surveys in our system that contractors are using to produce automated surveys with those. So to give you a bit of an idea, start of day checks, I'm not going to cover all those, by the way. You'll be here a while if I tried that one. But start of day checks, you can see there on the mobile app to the screenshot on the left, we carry out those checks each morning if they have that switched on. And that produces a report, but it also produces a dashboard widget that you can see on the day who has completed their questions and who hasn't. And it will flag up whether they've got any issues. So you know, have you got any problems with your vehicle? If it had got a yes in there, you could then investigate what that was about. And you can also print that form off as well. Start of day checks, you can see there, these are quite basic. But what we do have is we have got some people that use this where they've almost mirrored the VOSA start of day vehicle checks as well, which has got quite a in-depth list. So if you're interested in that, we have got a couple of our clients using that, and we can set that up on your system as well. One of the things you saw it on our little demo was risk assessments. I don't think I need to go too much into that, but we can create a PDF printout as a result of the risk assessment as well. I just want to show you a couple of examples of how we present data on surveys differently. So you'll have seen our standard layout in quite a lot of places, but take, for example, this one. I mentioned on one of my previous slides about the fact that we do the CD10 and CD11. You can see that that survey on the mobile app looks a little bit like this. All those things I mentioned, text fields, pick lists and buttons, we then present that back to you on this layout here. So where we have said pass, fail or NA or whatever, we just, instead of putting words, we tick the box for you. And we place it all in a really nice little layout, and that can be printed, and it looks really professional for sending on to clients. I mentioned the landlord's gas safety record. Again, we can produce the survey on the mobile app and present the data back to you in a format that looks like this. It's a bit small, but if you had multiple appliances, so this is a boiler, but if you had, say, the gas fire, we'll stick a gas fire line on there as well. The PAT testing is a different one again. So where you remember me walking down our little PAT testing survey, adding these things in, we've got a PAT testing layout that looks like this. And if it fails the checks, we can put them in the list of failed appliances, and the next service date, or next check date rather, is here, and all this information can be emailed direct out to your client. I mentioned emergency lighting. That looks a little bit like this. So I haven't put every layout on here, but as you can see, we've got a bunch of different survey layouts you can use, lots of different customers doing different things. So if any of this is of use to you, please let us know and we can help you set that up. Even if it is that you just want some training on how to set up surveys, again, we can definitely cater for that.